In this lecture, let's try to create our first milestone project, which is like first I'll create a simple Spring Boot application which has one REST service exposed so that anyone can invoke it. So first we build the basic Spring Boot application and we don't put any security to our REST service and anyone can invoke it and see the response. Post that, I'll also show you how easy to put some security for that REST service by using default configurations with the help of Spring Security Framework. So in order to create a Spring Boot application, I came to the website start.spring.io, which we can use to generate a sample Spring Boot application based upon the dependencies that we define. Again, if you're not familiar with Spring Boot basics and all, please follow my discussion. You should be able to understand and follow very easily. I'm going to cover each and every detail throughout this course. Like whenever I discuss some Angular code or UI application, backend application, or any Spring Boot configurations. So I'm going to spend some time explaining all those things so that you are comfortable with them along by putting major focus on Spring Security Framework. So here I have to select the Maven project as my project type, and the language that I want to use is Java, and Spring Boot version I'll go with the default version that is selected. Group I'll just mention com.easybytes, and artifact I'll mention Spring Security Basic, and name also I'll mention Spring Security Basic project, and description is demo project for Spring Security, and the package name will be populated automatically, and the packaging will be jar, and the Java version that I want to use now is 8. Now in order to generate a Spring Boot application, I need to define what dependencies I need. So first my focus is only to generate a Spring Boot application with a REST service built inside it. So in order to implement a REST service inside my Spring Boot application, I will need a dependency which is Spring Web. So I'll just add that dependency. This is a starter project which will take care of providing all the dependencies and jars that you need inside your application. So I'll just click generate here, and when I click generate, I'll get a sample Maven skeleton project will be generated for my configurations that I have defined here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this zip and extract that into a location where I want to save my workspace. So now I'm going to extract my Spring Security Basic project into the same location. So once it is extracted, you can see there'll be a pom.xml inside it, which indicate that this is a Maven project. Now I'll go to my Eclipse and import this Maven project into my workspace. So here I have to select import projects and type Maven. So existing Maven projects I want to import. So I'll click next and browse to the location where I have my project extracted. So you can see I just selected that folder, and as soon as I select it will detect the pom.xml is present inside it, and once I click finish, that entire project will be imported into my workspace, and at the same time all the Maven dependencies that are needed for this Spring Security Basic project will be imported by the Maven framework. So if you don't have Maven, I would request you to install Maven inside your system so that it can detect the pom.xml dependencies and download all the dependencies that you need. So if you go and observe the pom.xml, so here I just mentioned the dependency which is starter web, and by default every Spring Boot application will get a Spring Boot starter test dependency as well. So with this single starter project dependency, I'm able to get all the dependencies that are needed, like Spring Boot, logging, and there will be an embedded Tomcat server, Spring core libraries, and JUnit related. So everything I'm getting through the help of this starter project. That's a power of starter projects inside Spring Boot applications. If you don't follow Spring Boot applications development, if you follow traditional way of building Spring applications, you have to define all those jars dependencies inside your Maven pom.xml, but here with the help of starter project, my Spring Boot will take care of getting all those dependencies for me. So now let me show you the sample package that got generated. So this is the package name like com.easybytes.spring security basic, and inside that we have a main Spring Boot application class, and you can identify by seeing the annotation Spring Boot application. So this does not have any business logic. So this just a skeleton project. If I try to start this project also, nothing will happen. It will just start, but there is no business logic to invoke. So for the same, I'll just try to create a new REST service so that we can start the server and test our REST service that we have created. So for the same, I am going to create a separate package with the name com.easybytes.controller, and inside that I'll create a class with the name welcome controller. So inside this welcome controller, I'm going to make some code changes which I have already done. So I just pasted those code changes to save some time for us. So but I'll explain you what changes I have done. So first I have put the annotation @REST controller to indicate to my Spring Boot application that whatever APIs that I'm mentioning inside this class, they will act as a REST APIs. And inside this, I have written a method say welcome with the annotation get mapping and the path /welcome, which means anyone can invoke my REST API path with the name /welcome, and the HTTP method call that I want to support is get type. If you want to support post, you can use post mapping, but here since I want to invoke through browser, I just give get mapping. And what this /welcome API supports is it will just return a sample message to the user saying welcome from Spring application without security. So I have my REST service ready. Now what I will do is inside my main Spring Boot application, before I start my application, I'll also add an annotation @component scan and mention the package name where my welcome control is staying. So this is the standard that we need to follow. So whenever we use component scan, so I'm telling to my Spring Boot application, outside the package that you are sitting, there are other packages. Please go and scan all those packages and classes, annotations, and whenever my Spring Boot application sees that there is a REST controller get mapping annotation, it will expose a REST API with the name /welcome. So with these changes, we should be good to start our application. So to start a Spring Boot application, you just have to right click on the Spring Boot main class and give run as Java application. So as soon as I give this command, you can see my server will start. I didn't add my project to any server because Spring Boot has an embedded Tomcat server which will be used to start the project. So you can see it is started at the port 8080. Now in order to access my welcome page, I'll go to the path localhost. Obviously this is the host name that we have to use, and port is 8080, and the path that we have for our REST web service welcome. So as soon as I hit this, you can see I'm getting a response. So this way we have built successfully a REST service, but unfortunately my web application and this REST service does not have any security. So anyone can invoke my service and they can get the response from my application. Now I want to show you how easy to implement security for a REST service with the help of Spring Security Framework. So for the same, let me go to the same page like start.spring.io. The dependency that we have to add to our Spring Boot project is just type security, and when you type you will get a Spring Security. So that's a dependency I want to add. So I'll go and explore the pom.xml that got generated. I'm just trying to take this entire pom.xml and replace that into my existing pom.xml. Before that, I stopped my server also. So let me copy paste my latest pom.xml, and the latest dependency that we have added is Spring Boot Starter Security. I'll build my application. Now see the magic. I have not added any other configurations. I'll just go ahead and start my application with the help of run as Java application, and server will start at the same port 8080. And once the server is started, I'll go to the same location like localhost 8080/welcome and going to refresh the page. You can see here now it is asking me to enter credentials to access my REST service. So I didn't tell anything to my Spring Boot application, go ahead and protect my /welcome API. By default, your Spring Security Framework will protect all the APIs present inside your application. So we will discuss how to customize those for which APIs you want to protect, which APIs you want to give full access to the public in the coming lectures. For now, I want you to understand the power of Spring Security Framework. I didn't code anything related to login page. Still, it is giving me some login page which is present inside the framework. So now here it is asking me to enter credentials to access that REST service. So by default, the username is user and the password is, you can see the random password got generated in the console. You can use that password, and if you enter sign in, you can see the response now. So this is the beauty and power of Spring Security Framework that I want you to understand. And of course, this is not a production grade or production ready application. This is the baby steps that we are taking in the Spring Security Framework. Now, you may ask me like, can we use our own user credentials? Of course, we can do that. For that, what I have to do is I just have to open the application.properties present inside my project. Here, I have to give two properties where I can configure username and password. So the properties are Spring Security user.name, which is easy bytes, the username that I want to use, and the password that I want to use is 12345. So with these changes, I will restart my application. Now, if you observe in the console, there won't be any password that will be generated by Spring Framework. The reason is we have mentioned our own password inside application.properties. Now, if I try to refresh the page, it will again ask the login, and this time I have to enter easy bytes and the password is 12345. So we'll get a response, welcome from Spring's application without security. Of course, we implemented security. I can update these statements saying that welcome from Spring application with security, and I'll restart my application again so that we get a proper message this time. So I'm going to refresh. Again, it is going to ask me what are the credentials. I'll tell easy bytes and password is 12345. So now you can see I'm getting a proper response. This way, Spring Security will help you to implement security inside your web applications. I know you might have a lot of questions like, this is pretty basics. How do I configure so many users inside my application? Their username, credentials. How do I encrypt, decrypt their passwords? How do I store their passwords? So all these questions we'll answer in the coming lectures one by one. Don't worry. But since I want to start with a basic Spring Boot application with Spring Security enabled, I showed this demo. I hope this is very clear to you. I would request you to do the same exercise, like create a simple Spring Boot application, add Spring Security dependency to it, and try playing with it and understand how this is working by doing a coding exercise. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next lecture. Bye.